Essex Voices.
BBC Essex.
All righty, time for Essex Voices, something that I do every single Tuesday between 7pm and 8pm, and we talk to people from across the county who've got really interesting things to say, and we cover a really broad range of topics, and tonight it's about to get seriously camp in the house as we talk about the rise of the drag queen community here in the county. And I am joined by some of the most, in fact, I'm not even going to say some of the most, I'm going to say the most incredible drag queens from across the county. And I'm going to introduce them one at a time. And I'm going to start with Dextris. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you?
Really well. You're looking fabulous. Fabulous.
Considering I was only given 2 hours to get ready.
2 hours?
Yeah, I was at work when I got the phone call.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, listen, I mean, you look incredible. It's lovely to have you on. Where are you from in the county?
I'm in Harwich.
In Harwich. Marvellous. And are you the only drag queen in Harwich?
As far as I know, I can't find anyone else.
Well, repping Harwich, we've got Dextris. And next I've got Shar Cooterie. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm very good.
Wonderful. I'm getting, so we're talking to Shar Cooterie, but I'm seeing the person behind the mask
Yes.
tonight, which I love. I always find it so exciting meeting the drag queen. Would you say the alter ego?
Yeah, I mean, with my drag, it's very much just an extension and exaggeration of myself, although I want to, I'd like to do a full character sort of thing at some point or other. So it's just a muted Shar today. That's what we're going for, slightly muted.
I think it's fabulous. It's lovely to have a bit of diversity on the Zoom. So thank you so much for joining us. And
My
then I've got a fellow Basildon bird on the line here, Kenzie Blackheart.
Hello, my lovely. How are you?
I'm really well. A fellow Bas Vegas family member.
I know, probably from just right down the road, but I'll probably see you at Pitsy Tesco at some point.
100%. I'm just down the road. I know it like the back of my hand.
Oh, me too.
Well, you're looking fab. You've got some, is that ostrich feathers there?
It is ostrich, yes, vegan, of course. So fake ostrich, but
I was going to say,
still looks expensive.
That ostrich feather, that's the most expensive, isn't it? It's a nightmare, but it's just gorgeous.
Oh, honey, none of this is cheap. I mean, it takes a lot of money to look this cheap, as our diva Dolly Parton would say, but it still takes a lot.
You need some coin in your pocket.
Like
well, we'll talk about
exactly.
that in a little while. Actually, I think that'd be an interesting point to kind of talk about the cost of drag.
Okay, no problem.
But let's carry on and keep introducing my lineup this evening. I've got Fanny Galore. How are you?
Absolutely average. How are you, darling?
Do you know what? It's a Tuesday, and I'm choosing to be fabulous. And you're helping.
Every day feels the same, though, don't you think? Every day's morphing into the same day.
Yeah, I feel like I'm morphing into my mum every day, to be honest with you.
Me too, dear. Me too.
Oh my God, I want to meet your mum if that's the case.
Oh, she's very glamorous, dear, from the waist up.
Oh, I love it. And whereabouts are you from?
So I'm in a tiny village called Matching Tie, which is near the M11, near Harlow. So I'm in the woods, in the forest, as we speak.
Right. So you really must be the only drag queen in the village. In
the village, yeah. I don't walk the 3 dogs dressed like this, I must admit. But yeah, I'm the only one in this sort of the surrounding.
Right. Well, I think you should give it a go, walking the dogs dressed as you are in this beautiful purple, violet, pastel hairdo. Because at least you'd make the local paper. It's a bit of publicity, darling.
I know exactly, with my pooper scooper.
Incredible. It's great to have you on, Fanny.
Darling, thank you.
And last but by no means least, we're joined by Rox Hart. Hello.
Hi.
How are you, babe?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Tell me where you're from.
So I'm actually around the corner from Fanny, and I'm actually in.
Why can't I hear you, Rox? Why can't I hear you? Are you far away from the microphone? Oh,
I think I've muted my thing.
Okay. Did you say you're just round the corner from Fanny?
Yes, I'm actually in Harlow.
In Harlow. Oh, you've got a sister. You've got, is that?
Oh,
Look at that. We're making family. We're reuniting sisters on Zoom tonight, which is lovely. Really lovely. Well, it's great to have you all on. Thank you so much for having for having me. Well, for having me too, actually. You've taken time out of your evenings as well, haven't you?
No problem.
I want to explain to my listeners what a sight I'm seeing, okay? Because, of course, we're all on Zoom. Something that we didn't even know existed 6 months ago, but an absolute treat to see some pink feathers. I've got a purple wig. I've got a huge, gorgeous black wig that I'm seeing there from Amber, and Rox has got the most incredibly winged eyeliner, something that I can never achieve. I do give it a go, but I've not got a steady hand for it. I'm not going to lie. And of course, Shar Cooterie giving us all that drag queen realness, the face behind the mask, which is just gorgeous to see in contrast. And we're talking tonight all about drag here in the county. And I'd love to start by hearing each of your stories of your kind of first little steps into the drag world. And should we start with you, Shar Cooterie? Can you give us an idea of, you know, when it was, what made you kind of step into that world, and where your love for drag came from?
Of course. I suppose my very first encounter with drag was, as I imagine a lot of people in this country, sort of the first playing with gender was a panto dame. And so for me, that was always the chaos and the fun of that sort of role. It always appealed to me from a very young age. Mm-hmm. And then when I was studying drama and I sort of became slightly more aware of drag as an individual thing rather than associated with panto directly, I was like, that could be a lot of fun. And recently, because of lockdown, I've just been bored out of my mind. I went through my Twitter. That's how desperate it's gotten. I went through my own Twitter feed a few weeks ago, and I found a post from like 2014 where I'd written, I really want to do drag. I only started November, just gone, but I'd sort of call myself really giving it a go. And I just got so cross with myself. I was like, where have I been for the last 6 years?
Yeah. Oh, listen, you can't think like that. You can't think like that.
No, not at all.
All happens at the right time, in the right way. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think, you know, the generation above us, maybe, and I'm saying above us, I'm assuming we're all around about the same age here, because you all look very young, dears, very young. And I'm hoping I'm still in that very young category. But the generation above us, you know, my dad, for example, he's 64 this year, I think. And I think for them, it's this idea, you know, of, you know, a man wanting to dress up as a woman, and this whole kind of cross-dressing era, and there was no real understanding of, you know, the art behind drag. And I think that's what people, and I'm saying this as someone who doesn't do drag, but I think that's what people are really understanding more now, you know, is we're kind of getting more of an understanding of the art and the beauty and the creativity and the performance of drag. And I want to kind of dive into that. Go on, Shar Cooterie, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say you're absolutely right. I think that is the key distinction. Within this wonderful umbrella of just exploring gender and playing with gender, there's so many different ways of expressing oneself. But for me, the thing that takes it from cross-dressing or exploring one's identity to drag is there is a performative element. There is a need for what you're doing to be seen. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. So obviously before people could differentiate between that, there was, of course, it just all got lumped in together. And I think there's just a greater appreciation for the fact that it's performance and it's art.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really interesting to hear your backstory, and I'm going to carry on and hear Kenzie, Fanny, Rox and Amber's stories as well. But I must ask you for a very quick pause, because I've got to just let people know what's happening out on the roads and rails this evening.
Essex Voices.
BBC Essex.
Yes, right. You're joining me as I'm talking all things drag queens tonight on BBC Essex. This is Essex Voices, where I talk to a community of people here in the county and we find out what makes them tick, what's going on in their worlds. And tonight, it's super camp, it's long eyelashes, it's long hair, it's lots of lipstick, and it's all things drag. Now, if you have a question for my gorgeous drag queens that I've got on Zoom this evening, if there's anything that you want to kind of add to the conversation, don't be shy, okay? Now is not the time to be shy this evening. You can call me on 0800 111 40 41, or you can drop us a text. If you're a little bit shy, you can drop us a text, 81333, start your message with the word Essex and text away. I've got Amber Dextris, Shar Cooterie, Kenzie Blackheart, Fanny Galore and Rox Hart all on the line with me. Now, we heard a little bit of a backstory there from Shar Cooterie and just mentioned how since coming into this new age of social media, of, kind of documentary and storytelling more and more on the televisions and on things like Netflix, we're kind of learning much more about the drag community. Kenzie, let's come to you next and find out where your first foray into this world began.
Well, my actual step into the world of drag was actually through my love of Lady Gaga. When she sort of hit the scene, I was around 14, and as I'm sure a lot of people out there and everyone in this group chat can, confirm, 14 is a very confusing age. So to have someone, on the scene who was outspoken, who wasn't afraid to be who they were, that just spoke volumes to me. And it was just something deep inside me that wanted to be her. So I would start by sort of cutting up old t-shirts from like Primark, hot gluing them together, and recreating her costumes. And it was because of that I got into drag. It's been an absolutely amazing journey just going forwards from there. So, yeah.
Wow. And do you think it really helps, particularly nowadays, having, role models, people that are kind of paving the way in the sense of being flamboyant, really being their authentic selves and being these larger than life characters that, are in the mainstream, that kind of give us each, the in on exploring those parts of ourselves? Do you think that really makes a difference maybe to, 20, 30, 40 years ago?
1,000%. And I think the thing about role models today is that we're no longer just in the realm of everyone you have to look up to is white. We have such an array of people out there nowadays, which is so good to see. We've got, so many people of colour that kids can look up to. We've got queer people of colour. We've got it's so good to see how many people out there are just using their voice and expressing themselves and not being sorry of what they're doing. I feel like we're definitely moving forwards to a much more braver, more outspoken society, and that's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rox, you're like a mixture of Britney Spears and Avril Lavigne. You're like the love child of Britney and Avril. Is that right? Is that what we say?
Yeah. So I take a lot of influence from punk rockers and especially Pat Benatar, with the extra blush and stuff. So I kind of feel like I'm obsessed with Britney. Britney is my Gaga. And then Avril Lavigne is it's just punk princess. And I was like, that's me.
You must be all over social media right now then with the whole Free Britney campaign that's going on, right?
I kind of am, but I'm kind of not, because I don't like to buy into conspiracy theories.
Fair play. And I've been watching a lot of Gavin and Stacey, so I can't stop saying fair play all the time. I just had to say that because I'm sure my listeners are probably going, Helen, what are you doing? Fair play. And so your love then began, similarly to Kenzie, where you were kind of looking up to someone that you had, this huge love for, this huge passion for. And when did you start to, take on your drag persona?
Oh, God. The first time I went in drag properly was Halloween, 2001. I was like 12 years old going to a party and I wanted to be the evil queen out of Snow White.
An
But
absolute
I've been
icon.
obsessed with makeup and heels. Totally. 100%. Like, I've been like obsessed with makeup and high heels since I was a little kid. I used to sneak into my nan's bedroom just to put on her lipstick.
Wow. And, you know, on that note then, Rox, because I know that, you know, I'm part of the LGBT community myself, and I've got a lot of trans friends, a lot of female trans friends who, you know, kind of realised who they really were doing those similar things, you know, borrowing their nan's lipstick or, you know, putting on a pair of heels. For you, where's the... And is there, or does there even need to be, a difference between, you know, trans and drag?
I mean, I think the main difference, obviously, drag in itself is performance-based. Trans is your identity.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of trans drag performers who don't refer to themselves as drag kings or queens, they're just drag artists.
Mm-hmm.
But I think drag gives them the confidence to be their authentic self.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great sort of, I think, you know how, you know, if you're gay or if you're a lesbian, sometimes it's a little bit easier to sort of dip your toe in the bisexual box, isn't it? Because it's a little bit easier, it feels a bit safer sometimes, having a bit of a stepping stone, and sometimes that may very well be the way for someone who's trans. It feels a little bit safer to kind of dabble in that sense and then to kind of really fully step into themselves. And I think that was a really nice, simple way of explaining the difference between trans and drag in terms of, you know, performative and someone's gender. I think that was really nice for anyone listening who maybe doesn't fully understand that. And I think you also made a nice point there about drag artists. I'm going to come to you. I was going to call you your real name then. I mustn't. Fanny, sorry, because your I say your real name. That's not very nice, is it? But your Muggle name, shall I say, is on the screen. So I almost called you.
Call me what you like,
I
dear.
can't.
Everyone else.
No, you're in a purple wig, darling. I'm not going to call you your Muggle name. It's Fanny and Fanny only.
Oh, Fanny rules the world, dear.
What do you think about the term drag queen? Because you've done a lot of nodding whilst Rox was talking there. And Rox was saying how, you know, some people, trans performers, don't say drag king, drag queen. Are we heading down this kind of non-binary, non-gendered route of calling ourselves drag artists? Do you think that's a good way to go?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone feels and wants to be a certain thing. So for me to say how I feel, drag queen is fine for me. I do prefer gender illusionist, if I'm honest. It's just that each their own. You know, I can't talk for any of the ladies and here. But for me, drag queen it makes me feel, just the word queen is you know, puts you up there. And for years growing up as a skinny, blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy, wanting to get in a frock, that was what I aspired to be. You know, I wanted the sparkliest costumes, the biggest lips, the biggest hair. So it's difficult. And if anyone's listening out there, you know, young boys or girls, just to hear people like us talking in this way, it gives them the idea that, do you know what, I'm a drag artist, or I'm a drag queen, or I can just be a drag. You know, boys and girls alike, really.
Yeah. Oh, I just got goosebumps a little bit. I just got a little bit goosebumps. You're so
See
right.
See the doctor, darling.
No, but you're so right. You know, I think it's all about representation, isn't it? You know, things that maybe we didn't see growing up, you know, on televisions, in magazines, and having that, I think, is such a blessing for the next generation. And what a ball they're going to have with this, with the paved way that, you know, you all are doing, in that sense. And last but not least, let me come to Amber Dextris. Tell us a little bit about your first dipping toes in the water of the drag world.
So dipping my toes in was when I was in secondary school. I suffered really badly with acne and spots and everything. So I used to nick my mum's makeup to cover it all up. But then, like, as I got older a little bit and just played with it a lot more, I started discovering what makeup could actually do. And then I started dabbling in like eyeshadow and raising my eyebrows a little bit higher and seeing what I could get away with at school. And then obviously RuPaul's Drag Race became a big thing. And through that just sort of encouraged me to sort of actually, I could go down that path. Let's see where that takes me.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming forward a couple of years later, when Culture had their first Pride, I went there. I looked ridiculous because I didn't really know what I was doing. So sort of obviously I managed to glue my eyebrows down and raise them a bit higher, but I was still unsure of like all the eye makeup and the cut creases that we do, and so I looked a mess. So that was the sort of first stepping stone. I mean, I was in my sister's £8 Primark dress that was leopard print. I looked awful.
I'm hearing a lot that we've all at least done something Primark based at some point.
Cheap.
Easy.
Fanny's got standards. She's the only one. I'm with you on the Primark front. That's interesting though, Amber, because you said that you would try and see what you could get away with at school. What could you get away with, and what was the response from your peers at school?
Well, luckily, I went to school with my older sister, who was she was very popular in school. She hung out with the popular people, and people respected her. So I was really well looked after while my sister was at school. Then it come to leaving school, and I got really badly bullied. Like I went through quite a harsh time, which I'm sure a lot of people like us do. Yeah, it was hard when my sister left school, but then I became really well respected in my school. All the teachers respected me when I came out, because I came out at such an early age. There wasn't really anyone in school or in Colchester when I was at school that had come out around my age range. So I was very well respected in that sense. So I got away with quite a lot. I still got the abuse for it, but I would do what made me happy anyway.
Wow, that's so brave. That's so brave. And, you know, I don't want to kind of sit here and talk about, oh, we're fine now. We've come on so far, and we live in this utopia where, you know, LGBTQ forever. I mean, yes, please. But, you know, there's still a lot of stigma, and there is a safety issue, I think, around drag queens and anything that's kind of gender bending in any way. How is Essex, and anyone can just feel free to just dive in here, but in terms of, you know, here in Essex, here in the county, how safe do you feel, you know, being dressed in drag? Would you go on public transport, for example? Would you feel comfortable walking down a high street in at night time after you've been in a club? Who wants to kind of jump in there?
I have sort of on occasion, but mainly because I don't drive, to be quite honest. So when I can, I'll get a cab, especially if I'm going to or from anywhere in a full outfit. I don't mind going out in a full face. So if I've changed into my boy clothes after a gig and I'm heading wherever. So, for example, after Colchester Pride last year, I just went out on the town with my friends who'd been to Pride, and we just had a few drinks and went wherever. That's sort of fine. I've got the benefit of being a fairly imposing man, so and woman, to be quite honest. Funny that. So I don't find myself to have too much issue, but it is also something I'm very wary of. There are particular places that I won't go to just because I know people are either going to be drunker, or there's going to be more people, or attitudes are going to be less open. So I think a lot of it is to do with sort of gauging where you're going. I wouldn't just walk into my local Wetherspoons in full face, for example.
Sure.
Just because I don't know the full range of clientele, whereas if there's bars I'm more familiar with, it's a bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And has anyone else got a thought on that? I mean, it's You know, I hate the idea that there are, you know, maybe particular venues that you might want to, you know, steer clear of. And do you think that Essex in general has a good view of drag queens, or do you think that, you know, maybe it's the younger people here in Essex that are more accepting? Anyone got any thoughts?
Well, I was going to say I'm quite lucky because where I am in Harlow and Southend, around that area, it feels really safe to me. I have no problem getting in my car, for example, and driving in full drag on the M11, but I wouldn't feel confident walking round a town centre, apart from Harlow, because I'm quite well known there, so people will shout out, "All right, Fanny." But I would not feel comfortable at the end of the night when people have been drinking, and I think it's getting better. I've got friends in London that do drag, and they get on the trains to Manchester and Birmingham, and they start making themselves up on the train. I'm not as confident as doing that, but good for them. And when they do it, I applaud them, because I can't.
And can you just articulate maybe a little bit, you know, why you wouldn't walk around Harlow? Is it verbal? Is it physical that you're worried about? Do we, you know?
Yeah, it's not so much. I said Harlow because I'm from there. I feel safer in Harlow. But if I was to go out where people have been drinking in the town centre, I don't know, of Romford or Southend, it's just because even going back to like what Amber was saying about being bullied, it's that, yes, you've got this mask on, yes, you've got this sort of superhero thing, but when you're on your own, you're vulnerable anyway. So, you know, all it takes is for someone to say something a bit wrong, and I'd turn into Fanny, and then you know, I just don't feel comfortable. And that's something that I hope and I pray that us doing things like this, I've said it before, the kids now are going to grow up knowing it's okay to be different. We can walk down the street. 2 lesbians can hold hands. 2 men can kiss in a bar. At the moment, we're not there. But we are getting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, you're joining me in fabulous conversation with some of Essex's finest drag queens tonight. We're talking about the rise of the drag community, the rise of the drag queen, and what it's like for those who are performing here in the county. If you've got a question, if you've got something you want to add, if you know, if you've got a favourite drag queen, if you're a RuPaul's fan, jump on the blower, give me a call. 0800 111 40 41, or you can drop me a text if you like on 81333. Start those messages with the word Essex. Bit of Deacon Blue and Dignity for you here on BBC Essex. Always just mixing it up for you with the music choices. You never know where you're at. Now, I've had some fabulous text message come through. We've got some Fanny fans in the house tonight. We've got Fanny Galore's show. Seen Fanny's show many times in Essex. She's fantastic. From Marie, or Mary maybe, listening in Thresher's Bush. Love Fanny. Her Facebook Live quizzes really brightened my lockdown. She's so passionate about her art and her fans, and she kept us laughing every Saturday evening during lockdown doing a quiz, and she's gorgeous. From Fiona and John. Fanny, you've got some fans out there, I think.
Do you know what? Over this awful time, when it first started, we didn't know how long this was going to go on for, did we? So it was literally like the first Saturday, my gigs were getting cancelled week by week. I was supposed to be in a tour of The Wizard of Oz around the UK, and that got cancelled. Literally, I thought, what can I do? So I did a quiz, and we were getting like over 12 to 1,500 people joining in on a Saturday, and I just thought, everyone's in the same boat here. And I had people messaging me saying, I'm living on my own, I'm self-isolating, you're the only thing I look forward to. Each week would be a different theme, so that they would get dressed up in 80s or 90s or whatever. And I just thought, you know, for me, it gave me purpose. It gave me something to do, to sort the quizzes, to sort the music. I'll be after your job, Helen, in a moment. But not only did it it gave me a purpose, but it gave the people watching a purpose, and they've all created their own little groups called Fanny Family, and they all chat. They've never met them. They're all over like Newcastle, Portsmouth. They're all over, and it was a case of it wasn't meant to be, but it did, and I'm so grateful for everyone that has followed Fanny. So continue to follow Fanny.
Oh, it sounds like really good fun. And I think that's been a really wonderful thing about lockdown, is it has, I think people have broadened their minds to an extent. I think we've become nicer humans for it in some ways. And you know, things like, you know, the quizzes that you've been doing have really kept us coming together. And I want to kind of lastly talk about how you all envision drag going forward. So have a little think about that. I'm going to have a quick look at the roads and rails. It looks nice and quiet out there tonight. And as ever, if you're listening and you want to send something in, if you are a fan of one of my drag queens that I've got on the show tonight, or if you want to ask a question about drag, why not text me 81333. Start those messages with the word Essex. Although I would have to say, if anyone's brave enough, you can always jump on the phone and give me a call on 0800 111 40 41.
BBC Essex.
All right, let's jump back into conversation with my fabulous drag queens. And let's have a chat then about where we kind of see the future of drag going. And, you know, we talked a little bit about how far we've come in terms of acceptance, in terms of diversity. But we know that, you know, we're not comfortable totally going out or, you know, getting on public transport, feeling safe walking down a high street. What is the next step for drag? In terms of its art form and the creativity aspect and the performance aspect, but in terms of how the wider community can come to accept our drag community. Amber, did you want to kind of start us off with a thought there?
I think, like, obviously with Drag Race going so mainstream, I think that's really helping with the visual side of drag, and it's just becoming such a bigger thing these days. It's a much bigger thing than what it was when, say, I was a teenager. So that's really helping the sort of the side of it of people viewing drag queens and people who play with gender as just normal humans. Like it just helps. I mean, like if you watch the show, you see these people coming on to compete, but you can also see the personal side of it, and everyone's got a story to tell, and we've all been somewhere.
There's a very human side to the show, isn't there, which I really think really drags in the listeners, pardon the pun. Kenzie, what about you? Where are you kind of seeing the future of drag?
For me personally, I think that the future of drag is we will accept that it's no longer just men dressing as women. It's become such an art form nowadays, and I love that. I am so happy to see that it's become such an art form. You know, so many of my friends on the drag scene are biological women, and I think that, you know, just because you're enhancing what was already given to you, that doesn't make you any less of a queen. And, you know, in terms of shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, it was an amazing launch pad for getting a lot of what we do out there into the mainstream. And through that, there's become so many other different shows that have, you know, that have rocketed. There's 2 American shows called Dragula and Camp Wanakiki. And they recently, on their most recent series, had drag kings and biological drag queens competing, and it is so good to see that these artists are being given a platform as well. I really do think they deserve it. And, you know, just if we can all accept that it's not just the sort of people that are on RuPaul's Drag Race, and that if we open our minds to this art form, I think that will eventually spread out into the world, and hopefully we can all become a lot more open and a lot more understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the way that we want to see it pushing forward. And Rox, what do you think? How can we kind of urge the wider community to, become, I guess, more accepting? Is it in education? Do we start with children? Our parents and our grandparents, is it too late for them to kind of jump on board with drag queens and to celebrate us?
No, I don't agree with that whole you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think that's complete rubbish. Anyone can learn anything at any age. I think the main thing we need to start doing is normalise it. Teach people that it's still a job. Like, we're like fantastic, we're out the box, we're colourful, we're loud, we've got massive personalities. But at the end of the day, it's a job as well. It like pays our bills. So it's like, it's no different to me putting on a dress, getting on stage, to someone putting on a suit and going to an office.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think when you normalise, you normalise something and it becomes your reality, and then you no longer have to fear it or question it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? It's and I think oftentimes people forget that, you are hired by the bar or the pub or the venue, the nightclub, whatever it is, to be there and to perform and to entertain. And I mean, although it's different attire to maybe, an electrician, it's still a contract, isn't it? It's still a booking of sorts. We've had a lovely text message for you, Amber, saying, when are you going to do more of your Instagram lives again? We miss you, Jeff. Who's Jeff, to start off with, Amber?
Us. I don't know anyone actually watch them. I used to go live on Instagram with my friend Lola every week. We'd just sit and we'd get drunk and we'd just chat rubbish and just paint, and it would be such a laugh. And then we sort of, I don't know, we did so during Pride season, me and my partner, we decided to do our own on live Pride.
Oh, fab.
That was really fun to do, and that sort of was the last step that I did, and then had to start going back to work.
Oh, it's a pain, isn't it?
Out of it a bit, 'cause I've gone back to work now, but.
Well, okay. Well, Jeff, hopefully we'll be seeing some more lives from Amber soon. And Shar Cooterie, the future of drag. How are we kind of moving forward? How are we kind of keeping this momentum of the celebration of the drag queen?
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Kenzie said, to be quite honest. For me, whenever I've had to describe what drag is for me, so I typically describe myself as a drag performer, because I like not necessarily being sort of female illusion. For me, a lot of maybe it's because my makeup's not good enough, but for me, there is no illusion that I'm not a bloke in a dress. So I really think just championing the idea that all drag is valid. Anyone can do drag. And in fact, I would encourage everyone to do it at some point or other. I recently made up a friend who I never thought would ever consider it. And he was just like, do you want to just do my makeup? And it's transformative. It unlocks something. For me, drag is the art of caricature. Be bigger, be bolder, be extra, and be whatever you want. So long as we're doing that, I think drag will just keep building and growing.
Amazing, amazing. And Fanny, I'm going to come to you last but not least. But before I do that, I have got Connie on the phone who's got a question for us. Connie, how are you?
Hi, I am wonderful and loving this. Thank you all so much.
You're so welcome. It's lovely that you're enjoying it, Connie. What's your question?
Well, I know I have, and I'm sure many people have struggled through lockdown. And what I want to know is these wonderful drag goddesses. I want to know what your short-term goals are and your long-term goals coming out of lockdown. What are your hopes?
Oh, good question, Connie. Good question. Thank you so much for going in there. I think we'll go to Fanny, shall we? And Fanny, do you want to give us your answer to that question?
I think short term. Hello, Connie, by the way. I love that.
Hello, my love.
For me, I mean, I just love meeting people, and although not hiding behind doing my quizzes and things, it's the interaction that I really miss when I'm doing meet and greets, and I see people coming in, and I say, "How are you? What have you been up to?" And it's that sort of community feel that I really, really miss. But the thing, I'd like to get on Strictly Come Dancing. So if you could pull any favours at the BBC, I've got a mean foxtrot.
Connie, I hope that answered your question there.
Thanks, Connie.
Thanks for your call, Connie. Lovely to hear from you. I mean, you never know who's listening, Fanny, all right? You never know.
I
Give us your best. I tell you what, let's have a little quick audition, okay? I want you to give me your very best. Keep dancing. Go on, ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Keep dancing.
I will never unsee. I will never. Oh my goodness. Fanny's got a whole backboard, a whole scenery set behind her, and it's just falling on her head.
It, could you, Helen?
Oh my goodness. You're being attacked by a rainbow.
You buy cheap, you buy twice, Helen. That's what my mum told me.
Right. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to all say goodbye. And we've only really scratched the surface of conversation, so I think we should probably do this a little bit more often, shouldn't we?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lovely to meet you all. Thank you for all you girls. I'd love to speak with you.
Oh, well, listen, thank you so much for all coming on, taking the time out. You look gorgeous. And we've recorded this Zoom. So I think we're going to put it up on Instagram or something. Shar Cooterie, don't worry, darling. We'll put a little emoji over your...
Yeah,
we could emoji you. You know, and
it'll
move.
look better than my normal makeup anyway. So
Never. Well, one last time, Amber Dextris, Shar Cooterie, Kenzie Blackheart, Fanny Galore, and Rox Hart. Thank you all for joining us tonight on BBC Essex.
Thank you for having us.
Ta-ra. All things drag here on BBC Essex. How fun was that hour? And I think hopefully we've all learnt a little bit of something there from our drag queens, whether it's the notion that, you know, if you see a drag queen made up out and about, throw a friendly smile, let them know that they can feel safe and accepted when they're around you. And also, you know, we're coming out of lockdown now. Well, let's see our drag queens back in our bars, back in our, in the beer gardens, I reckon. Don't see enough drag queens in the beer gardens, do we? You can listen back to the conversation if you missed it on BBC Sounds. And that is the end of an Essex Voices. After 8 o'clock tonight, we're jumping into all...